When the First World War ended in 1918, Germany faced a harsh peace settlement. The Treaty of Versailles demanded massive reparations, stripped territories, and left the nation with a battered economy. Factories were damaged, unemployment surged, and the government was already scrambling for revenue. This fragile backdrop set the stage for one of the most dramatic monetary collapses in history. To meet reparations and fund the war-torn state, Berlin turned to its central bank, the Reichsbank, and began printing money at an unprecedented rate. Between 1919 and 1922, the money supply more than doubled each year, diluting the value of the Papiermark. The government's fiscal deficit ballooned, and each new note chased the same shrinking pool of goods. By early 1922, inflation was already a daily concern. Prices were rising faster than wages. A newspaper that cost 10 marks in 1919 cost 1,000 marks a year later. The rate of price increase doubled roughly every month, turning ordinary purchases into costly guesses. Yet most Germans still hoped the situation would stabilize, unaware how quickly it would spiral. The tipping point arrived in January 1923, when French and Belgian troops occupied the Ruhr, Germany's industrial heartland, to enforce reparations. The German government encouraged a policy of passive resistance, paying striking workers to stay home. To fund this, Berlin printed even more marks, flooding the market with cash that had almost no backing. Money creation exploded. In September 1922, the total money in circulation was about 10 billion marks. By July 1923, that figure had surged to roughly 330 billion marks, a 33-fold increase in under a year. Such a flood meant that each mark bought only a tiny fraction of what it once could, eroding confidence at a breakneck pace. Everyday items became symbols of the crisis. A loaf of rye bread, which cost 0.63 marks in January 1923, cost 200 billion marks by November. By the end of the year, the same loaf demanded 1.5 trillion marks. The price chart looked like a vertical line, illustrating how quickly the currency lost purchasing power. Wages could not keep up. Workers were paid twice a day, sometimes even hourly, because waiting even a few minutes could mean their money would be worth far less. People rushed to spend cash as soon as they received it, buying groceries, paying rent, or exchanging marks for foreign currencies that still held value. The sheer volume of cash required for basic goods became absurd. Citizens carried wheelbarrows of banknotes to purchase a few kilos of meat. Bartering resurfaced, cigarettes, eggs, and even horsehair became informal currencies. Foreign currencies like the US dollar and the French franc were hoarded, serving as the only reliable store of value. Middle-class savings evaporated overnight. Pension accounts, savings bonds, and modest inheritances were rendered worthless, wiping out a generation's financial security. The loss of wealth fueled social unrest, as families who once enjoyed stability now faced poverty despite having saved diligently for years. The crisis drew international attention. In 1924, the DOS plan was negotiated, providing fresh foreign loans and restructuring reparations. However, before that plan could take effect, Germany needed an immediate fix. The government introduced a new currency, the Rentenmark, in November 1923, backed by mortgage-secured land rather than gold, to restore trust. The Rentenmark was issued at a fixed rate of 1 Rentenmark to 1 trillion Papiermarks. Because each new note was tied to real assets, industrial and agricultural land, confidence returned quickly. Prices stabilized within weeks, and the hyperinflation that had rendered money meaningless finally stopped, marking a rare success in monetary reform. The German hyperinflation left a lasting lesson. A currency's value rests on public trust and disciplined monetary policy. The trauma contributed to political volatility, feeding extremist movements that promised stability. Understanding this episode reminds us how quickly money can lose meaning when unchecked printing meets fragile economics.